Well, where to begin for this upcoming weekend in the NFL? Of course, this past week we had some bombshell news after bombshell news break regarding the head coaching carousel. And then on top of that, as we've gotten closer now to the official wildcard weekend, we've got just crazy weather, some historic weather
Yeah.
coming up for these games. And on top of it, we've gotten some, injury news, largely good for many of these teams as we get ready. So a lot to unpack here for this wildcard preview episode. But of course, as always, we're gonna kind of segment this episode into the biggest news items, and that of course being these games. So we're gonna give you our look at what these games entail, our thoughts on who's going to come out on top for this entire weekend. We've got games Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but we cannot ignore the massive news of the week being the head coaching carousel that has taken place with the firings of, we'll start with Mike Vrabel, but then, of course, the legends, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, and a potential future Hall of Famer in Pete Carroll out in Seattle as well. So we'll kind of touch on that all at the end of the episode. So we'll start this episode here with our look at the wildcard weekend. Had a lot of crazy games to get to. So here we go. Let's get started.
You use fire in the background of that image. It's the opposite. We need a little heat in wildcard weekend this weekend because of the historic cold. For all our listeners who don't know, I live on the Illinois-Missouri border. I'm technically closer to Kansas City than I am Chicago. If I were to drive, it's about 4 hours to Kansas City, 5 hours to Chicago. And it is insane out right now. I mean, and the fact that they are getting ready for this game, it's been the talk of the town this week. In my radio station we carry the Chiefs. We're a Chiefs affiliate. And it is, it's first, the number one topic beyond the weather is in actually the paywall. People are not happy about the paywall, and they shouldn't be. It's BS. I think it's total BS for the NFL to put a playoff game behind a paywall. And so there's a lot to go on, but the weather is brutal, Dan.
It is brutal. It is brutal. I mean, to touch on that paywall thing, because obviously we've got games coming up on Peacock, and so people are going to have to get a subscription. Here's the thing that kind of makes me feel that it's a little bit overblown. I think there's two sides to this argument, and then we'll move on to the actual games. The first side is 90% of the people upset about this don't have a Peacock subscription. I'm sure there's free trials. So any of those who don't have it, you can get a free trial for the weekend. Now, granted, there's probably going to be games, who knows, next week or, definitely in the future too. So that point's well taken. And then the flip side is, or on that same side, I should say, the NFL Network's had games for years, and that hasn't come with a typical cable subscription for most people. So if you've wanted to watch games on NFL Network, Thursday Night Football in the past, you've had to add an NFL Network subscription or sign in through their app or something like that. So that's kind of always been around. And obviously they're free to do this, but I totally understand the issue. It's playoff time. The NFL's ratings king. They have billions and billions of dollars every year. Do they really need to eke out that extra? I think this game was sold for $100 million, I heard. And that's a lot of money, obviously. But in the bucket of the NFL, that's nothing. Do they really need it at the expense of their fans? That point is well taken.
To me, it's just one of those, it's just, NBC pays a lot of money, and so they're letting them kind of scratch your back. You scratch ours, we'll put one behind a paywall, and I just think it's really scummy.
The problem is like, where's this gonna go now? Because we have Prime, and now we have Peacock. Are we gonna be starting having games on Apple TV? Are we
playoff games? It's. I get it for Thursday Night Football and for, the NFL London games, and you want to put them on the network. And so
that's a good point.
I get it. That's like, but it's just scummy. I've been telling people all week on our radio show, go out and support a local business today. Go out, find a local bar or restaurant that's playing the game, that has the subscription, to get it, and support a local business. Don't do the free trial if you don't already have it. Stick to your guns and show them that it's not going to actually make them money. And so NBC loses money on it, and then hopefully they don't let this keep snowballing down the hill.
Yeah, for sure. They're going to have some sort of like long-term plan in place here, so people can be prepared and see where things are going. But that does seem to be the case with the way that subscription companies and services are going nowadays. All right, well, today is Saturday, January 13th, and we have two games coming up tonight or this afternoon and this evening. We have three games on Sunday, and finishing off wildcard weekend with Monday Night Football, Eagles and Buccaneers. So we'll start in order and give our thoughts on these games. Browns at the Texans coming up at 4:30 p.m. on NBC. This game, the Browns are favored in this one, -2. So just a 2-point favorite here on the road, though. That doesn't happen terribly often in the playoffs. But the Texans, who are coming in at 10-7, are taking on the surging Browns at 11-6. CJ Stroud, fully healthy for this one. Joe Flacco's had that epic run for the Browns. So how are we feeling about this matchup here where in a weekend full of crazy weather, this will not be the case? They're in Houston and in a dome, so we're good there in the elements.
Historically, first-time quarterbacks starting in the NFL playoffs, rookies or not, guys making their first start in a playoff game are well below 500. So that historically doesn't bode well for CJ Stroud. Joe Flacco is one of the greatest road and wild card quarterbacks of all time. I mean, I think if he wins today, he passes Brady for most playoff road wins. I mean, Flacco is special in these moments. I also will say one of the things that's really important to think about if you're previewing this game, the Browns destroyed the Texans a couple weeks ago with Joe Flacco. That was the Amari Cooper game. But remember, that was no CJ Stroud. That was, Chase, not Chase Daniel.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum, thank you.
And no Dalton Schultz, I believe, for that
and
game.
no Dalton Schultz. I think so I think those things are all really important. I'm taking the Texans as this game because I think that this game, to me, reminds me a lot of the Jaguars and Chargers game last year, where it makes sense that the road wild card team, it's the better team, better defense, older quarterback, everything's kind of lining up for them. Oh, the upstart young AFC South team is hosting a game. Good for them. But it's not going anywhere beyond that. And I just think that CJ Stroud is going to have a game like Trevor Lawrence had last year, where it's just like, that kid's special and that kid's at home and he's comfortable. And the Browns defense, as good as they are, they haven't seen CJ Stroud. They saw Case Keenum. And so I think it's going to be a shock. And I really think the chance for the Texans to crumble was last week, right? On the road, win or get in against a division rival in the Colts. And what did they do? They came out and threw a bomb on the first play and showed you, no, we don't fear anything. We are playing loose. We are playing with house money. I think it's one of the fun games of the weekend. I think it's a really close game. I'm going to take the Texans to win somewhere along the lines of 23 or 24-20. I think it's really close. I think CJ Stroud makes plays late in the game, and Joe Flacco makes an interception or a bad play at some point in time in the game to where this magical run ends for the Browns, and we get the Texans moving on into the second round.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have Houston winning this matchup as well. I think it's going to be very close. Obviously, the Browns are a super talented team. Their defense is fantastic, and it looks like they'll get a full healthy slate of guys there on the defensive end, Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. So it's going to be a tall task for CJ Stroud and company. Yeah. But I do think in terms of the compilation of both teams and where they're at, I think being home is certainly helpful here. The Houston Texans have played really well at home. CJ Stroud as a rookie, it's nice to be in a comfortable environment for your first ever playoff game. I think that's a big help there. And, for the injury and him being out and all of that, there's maybe something to be said for having a little bit more rest than a typical quarterback this time of the year. And yeah, Joe Flacco's very good. He's a poised quarterback. He's played very well within the system, but he's obviously, still, I would say overall, maybe a little bit rusty in terms of just, the full slate of games in an NFL season, playoff time. Yeah, how long can you ride this wave, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But obviously he's been playing well, so I don't want to, make that, a big factor in this game. I just think I agree with you. I think the better quarterback in this matchup is CJ Stroud. I think the Browns have the better defense overall, but I think the Houston Texans have an offense that scares me a little bit more. And Nico Collins is probably going to have a big game. Dalton Schultz has been a huge piece to what they're doing. I just think it's going to come down to a few plays here and there. And I agree, if it's going to be a mistake, I take Joe Flacco to be the one making that mistake over CJ Stroud. In this game, we'll see how we feel going down the road, especially who the Houston Texans will have to play in round 2. All right, moving on to the next game, Dolphins at the Chiefs. This game is going to be -5, not wind chill, just -5 degrees over there in Kansas City, with wind gusts up to, I believe they were saying up to 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour potentially. Making this a wind chill of in the -30s. So, yeah, buckle up, Miami, for this one. And obviously, all of the fans are going to have. I don't care if you've lived in Kansas City, Missouri your entire life. This is not amenable weather for anybody. I know I saw some local weather reports and meteorologists and news reporters giving advice on bringing cardboard to the games because cardboard doesn't hold in heat. Same with like air and like aluminum and things like that. So they're telling people to stand on cardboard, bring your own cardboard, and that'll keep you a little bit warmer. That's kind of amazing. I'd never heard of that before, but that's where we're at right now. What do you think this weather will do for these two matchups? Obviously, Kansas City's much more used to it. Miami relies on their playmakers being able to get out in space and run. Is this going to be a determinant for that?
I'm so glad you started this by saying, oh, look out, Miami. It's going to be cold and Kansas City, blah, blah, blah. That's all I've been hearing all week, right? And I'm going to paint you a picture here right now. I'm going to paint you a picture. I listened to Brian Baldinger on the Part of My Take podcast. I thought he had a great interview this week, and it was smart to have him on. They asked him about cold weather games. I asked two people I know who play college football about playing in the coldest weather games they've ever played in this week. And every single one of them, Baldinger and these two people I talked to play college ball, they all said the same thing. At that point in time, when it's that cold, it really hurts the defenses more than anything, because defense is all about being physical, putting your body on the line, tackling, wrapping up, and craving that contact. And when you're that cold, your hands go first, right? Like your hands go first, and you have got to wrap up. You got to tackle. Kansas City has the better defense, so I think the cold weather actually negatively impacts Kansas City. I think more. I really do. And if this game was, I'm just going to put this out. This is my theory. If this game was 30 degrees, if this game was 35 degrees, if it was 40 degrees, if it was 20 degrees, I would say huge favor to Kansas City. They are just more prepared to deal with, oh, this is cold, but we're going to be fine. This is dangerous cold. I mean, there is going to be reports of people who get frostbite who go to this game. There's going to be reports of players who end up with some frostbite. Like this is dangerous cold. It favors no one. I truly believe you cannot sit there and say, oh, this favors Kansas City. It favors no one. It gets to the point where it's so cold, it is equally miserable to both teams. And if it's equally miserable to both teams, right, if it favors no one, then I really do think Miami has a chance in this game, in the sense that at some point in time, we know they're both going to want to run the ball, and both teams can run the ball really well. Achane, Pacheco, they're going to lean on their offensive lines. At some point in time, one of these teams is going to have to throw the ball and make a play. And do you trust in cold weather, deathly cold weather, the bad hands of Tony and Valdez-Scantling and those guys for the Chiefs receivers, or do you trust Tyreek Hill to catch a slant, make a man miss, go 60 yards to the house in what would be a demoralizing dagger for Chiefs fans and Chiefs kingdoms the first time that the Chiefs are at, that Tyreek Hill returns to home. Also, these teams played each other earlier this year. Now it was in Germany, and there's a lot of factors, but they have already an idea of scheme of what they want to do to each other. Hard to beat a team twice in the same year. Kansas City won that matchup. I paint this picture to tell you I truly believe there is a real path for Miami to win this game. I truly believe there is a way for Miami to demoralize Kansas City in Kansas City with Tyreek Hill, the weapon that they got from Kansas City. All that said, I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I am going to take the Chiefs, but I don't, so much I've heard it. I'm just so sick of the narrative. Oh, the weather favors Kansas City. This weather does not favor anyone. It's dangerously cold. The weather we're going to talk about the next game favors a certain team, but this weather doesn't favor anyone. It's dangerous. And I think when you look at this game, it could come down to Tyreek Hill making a play that the Chiefs wide receivers can't make. And that could be the difference. I think, though, Kansas City and Travis Kelce and Pacheco and Mahomes will be enough to win this game in a really ugly, really close game.
I disagree a little bit here. I think the weather does favor Kansas City, and I'll tell you why. Because aside from, and this will be a small point to my argument, but it's probably the smallest. I'll start with the smallest one. It's Miami. Like they literally are not used to playing in this weather at all, right? There is something to be said for that. I mean, it's something that's borne out in reality. We've talked about, Amari Cooper, right? He was like a guy who could never play in cold weather, and it was a real thing. Obviously, he's in Cleveland now. Maybe that's gotten a little bit better, but Miami is not used to this at all, and so they're going to have to come, halfway across the country, and play in conditions that they just aren't accustomed to, But aside from all of that, and their quarterback, by the way, grew up in, Hawaii. So there's that too. But aside from all of that, this weather favors not just the Chiefs. I don't think it favors the Chiefs in general. I think it favors Patrick Mahomes. The wind chill is much less of a factor, in my opinion, than the wind gusts. If we're talking about up to 30-mile-an-hour winds, who do I trust? When you mentioned it, you're going to have to throw the ball at some point. Who do I trust to cut through that wind? I don't trust Tua at all to be able to cut through that wind. I trust Patrick Mahomes with that ungodly arm to be able to be less affected by that. And not to mention, they have the best intermediate find the gaps receiver in Travis Kelce, probably in the league.
Yep.
And so if there's a duo where I'm like, they can figure it out together and get through this defense, it's that duo. On top of that, you're not going to be able to pass all game. You're not going to be successful having 40 pass attempts, right? But you're going to have to drop back. There are going to have to be passing plays. And who do I trust to be able to scramble and get that 10 yards that the defense gives you? Because we talked about the weather being a negative.
Mahomes running is going to be
caught
big.
A little bit flat-footed. I think Mahomes is going to have upwards of 40 yards rushing in this game, scrambling 10 yards.
That's a great point.
Pop here, and I don't think Tua is going to be able to get out of chaos when that time comes. So to your point, Tyreek Hill is the only guy in this game that has the capability to break off an 80-yard run next to Devon Achane. They're both on the Miami team for sure. So they have the ability to break open a huge play. But anything else from that 25-yard, out route, over the middle of the field, deep down the hashes, who's going to be able to make those throws and get those plays off?
Yeah.
I trust Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs way more. So I take them in this game for those reasons. And then not even talking about who has the better run game, I think it's kind of a wash.
Yeah.
And so for that, I'll give the advantage, Casey.
Well, and I'm with you. Like I said, I picked the Chiefs. I just think the narrative all week of like I said, 20-degree weather, 30-degree weather. But when it's this cold, I really do. It's one of those things. Both are
hamstrung. Yes.
It's one of those things I'm just like, even though, yes, you live in Kansas City and you've been able to go outside of your car the last, 24 hours and like really like, okay, I can mentally prepare. Like it is going to be awful for both teams. So I think it's more of a wash in the sense that I'll put it this way. I said this the other day on my show, and I think it's true. This game is only going like one of two ways. Like either Kansas City's going to win in a blowout because Miami they will be just so inept. They'll just crumble, or it'll be a tight game and it'll come down to the last second. There's no world in which Miami wins a blowout, right? There's just I just don't see that happen.
Agreed. Agreed. All right, moving on to the 1:00 game on Sunday. So right now, when we're in agreement, we both have the Texans and the Chiefs
Yes.
advancing. Steelers at the Buffalo Bills. This game is also expected to have some crazy, crazy weather. They're
Snow
saying
overnight.
snow overnight.
They're
I need to
paying.
double
They've
check.
already put out the call, paying for Buffalo, paying $20 an hour. Bring your own shovel. And the game is noon tomorrow, noon Central Time, 1 Eastern. And so by the time the kickoff happens, I think the snow will have gone away. But it'll be they
the
got to
snow is
clear
expected to go away. Yes,
they got to clear the stands, but it could still have like crazy wind gusts.
They're saying wind gusts of up to 65 miles an
Right.
hour.
Yeah. And it's not going to be as cold, though. It's not going to be as cold. It'll be like in the 20s and 30s, but with the wind gusts, it'll feel really bad.
It's gonna feel terrible. 23 degrees at kickoff is what was the latest report that I saw.
You'll have some sunshine, though. At least you'll have that going for you, unlike the Chiefs and the Dolphins.
Yeah, warm yourself up a little bit with the sunshine. Yeah, no, the 65 mile per hour wind gusts.
Yeah,
certainly favors the Buffalo Bills because Josh Allen has
the arm,
the strongest arm in the NFL. But I don't know if I've ever seen wind gusts that intense. Like, I don't even know if the strongest arm in the league could even, like, maybe that'll help you on like a 10-yard dig or something like that. I don't know if that will help anybody on a 45-yard, ball down the sidelines. That's insane. So that does favor the Buffalo Bills a little bit in this game. This is going to be one where you're going to have to run the ball 35 times per team to have a shot. I think under center, I think most snaps should come from under center because with 65-mile-an-hour wind gusts, you can't really trust the snap because anytime the ball is remotely in the air, it can move. So a snap out of shotgun even is going to be a problem. Punting. Long snappers for
special teams is going to be a huge factor this game.
It's going to be a massive factor, let alone the cold and fumbling. This is going to be a very horizontal game of football. I believe we're going to be seeing, and that certainly favors the Buffalo Bills. But when it comes to the run game, the Bills have been able to run the ball well too. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have the advantage there. I think lately they've been a more physical group on offense. Try tackling Najee Harris in this weather. I think that's going to be a big problem. I very much see Najee getting a 75-25 split with Jaylen Warren in this game. I mean, Jaylen Warren is not going to be involved as much, I think. And look, you're going to need your physical you're going to need George Pickens to be able to do what we talked about Tyreek Hill doing. Like, he's going to have to take a 10-yard slant, or they're going to have to get like a back shoulder throw to him and be able to get it to him there. And then Pat Freiermuth is going to be the X factor. I think it's going to be Pat Freiermuth and Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, the tight ends.
Both of these teams, the tight ends are going to be huge factors because when we talk about throwing the football, you're still going to have to throw it at some point. We saw earlier this year, Patriots Bills. I think the Patriots threw 4 times the whole game.
Oh, that was 2 years ago, I think. Or
was that 2 years? Okay.
That Mac Jones and the crazy wind. And so Buffalo's played in this before.
That's right.
I've been waiting for you to say it, and maybe I'm cutting you off, but you mentioned the last game. I think Josh Allen running the ball is going to be a massive part of this game as well because he has the ability he does it anyways, and he has the ability to just say, F it, I don't like it. I'm going to take the 5 yards. I'm going to take the 10 yards. This game will be – I hate the line in this game. The play is crazy. Absolutely Pittsburgh plus the points because –
No doubt.
Pittsburgh will be able to stay in this game. I think Buffalo's going to win. I think Buffalo is finally at a spot where no one picked them. Like, this was the year, like Buffalo, I think one of the things that helped them was going to 6-6 and just being like, fuck it. Like, our backs are against the wall. They went from 6-6 to 11-6, and they are playing it in an ugly way, winning ugly football, running the football. And I think Josh Allen, he had a quote 2 days ago on the podium that I just loved. Someone asked him, was like, "Oh yeah, no all pros from Buffalo and the all pro team." what are your thoughts on that? And it was like one of the last questions of the press conference. He just said, "Go Bills," got up and left. Like, I think this team, Buffalo's finally able, I feel, to feel like we have a chip on our shoulder. This will be ugly. This will be gross. I think it's going to be low scoring, and I'm going to trust Buffalo and Josh Allen to get it done. If TJ Watt was playing, I think it'd be even closer and even easier for you to say Pittsburgh can win, because this is a TJ Watt game, right? He goes out and strip sack, fumble, bad weather, and they just dominate on defense. I just don't know, with that linebacker core that Pittsburgh has pasted together against Josh Allen and this evolving running game for Buffalo. I think it's low scoring. I think Pittsburgh absolutely covers. I don't think there's any field goals in this game. I really don't think any team tries it. I think it's something along the lines of this game, even extra points get missed. I think it's a wonky, 20 to 14 type of weird game. And Buffalo finds a way to win. But Pittsburgh's alive in this game, absolutely.
I oddly think that not having TJ Watt, it sucks. Like, he's the best defensive player in the world, in my opinion. I think not having TJ Watt, they are aided by the weather. I think the weather actually helps alleviate the loss of TJ Watt, because they're not going to be dropping back to pass as much. And he's a pass rush specialist. He's amazing against the run, though. I think doesn't get enough credit for that.
He's also a run game specialist.
I mean, he's amazing at everything. But if there's an area where they can, mitigate that loss, it's in this weather and playing more for the run. So that's somewhat helpful. They get Minkah Fitzpatrick back, which I think will help. If I were the Steelers, I would put Minkah Fitzpatrick just on Dalton Kincaid the whole game.
I would agree. That's a great plan.
Against the Cardinals, they got torched by McBride that whole first half. They put him on him in the second half and really helped things. But it's just like, don't mess around. Like, just, you're already going to be taking away Diggs with Joey Porter Jr. You're going to have him locked on him. They don't have Gabe Davis. Their only other threat in the receiving game is Dalton Kincaid. You put Mink on him and you take care of business that way. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers pulling off the upset.
You have to. I get
winning this game. But I'd be mad if you didn't. It's possible.
I'd be mad if you didn't.
I'm not going to say
I'm with you. I'm with you. They're alive in this game. I said it. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I feel you.
Yeah. I think that with the weather, I think it really benefits them a lot. I think they're going to be able to run the ball effectively in this game. And maybe the Buffalo Bills stack the box and make that a little bit more difficult the entire game. I understand. But I think you can play bully ball. That's the way they've been playing. And if not, you're just going to have to get the short game going a little bit to keep them honest. But I think it's a big Najee Harris game. I think it's a big Pat Freiermuth game. And all in all, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are much less prone to making a big mistake than Josh Allen. Fair. I trust the Pittsburgh defense to force a big mistake, and I think that's going to be a big determinant.
I would be mad at you if you didn't pick Pittsburgh. So I'm happy with your pick there.
I agree with the points, though. It's going to be 17.
Josh
14.
Allen could have over 100 yards rushing. That's all I'm going to say. I think to me, that's what I look at this game. I'm like, Josh Allen, kind of Superman cape type of performance.
Yeah. Watch Mason Rudolph get 150 yards rushing in this game. Let's go.
They might, honestly, Pittsburgh might be better off starting Mitch. Just let him run. Scramble.
Oh, God. Don't. It's they'll put a Wildcat formation there with Mitch.
Yeah.
All right. The afternoon game on Fox, Packers at Cowboys. Dallas favored by 7 at home against the, your NFC North Green Bay Packers. Sorry to say that.
So Dan, what I love about this game so much is that you're going from awful weather. The two previous games, right, will be Kansas City and Miami, which is going to be disastrous. People are going to watch people die, basically. And then you're going to watch 65-mile-an-hour wind gusts. You can't throw the ball at all in Buffalo. And then you get Green Bay and Dallas, which I think Green Bay's defense has been so bad. Don't think of the Bears game as anything that the Green Bay defense has found their stride. No, the Packers just beat the Bears. That's just what they do. So I really think this is going to be more like a palate cleanser, right? Like, oh, thank God. In a dome, short sleeves, efficient offensive football. Dallas is 8-0 at home. Don't overthink this. First time starting quarterbacks in the playoffs struggle. I'm taking CJ Stroud because I think he's really special. I think Jordan Love's had a really nice season. I don't think he's special. And I think that the Dallas defense, this is a Micah Parsons game written all over it. Yeah, all the pressure's on Dallas. I know that. But I think this is a lose-lose for me because I hate both teams. But I just think don't overthink this. This is just CeeDee Lamb, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dak Prescott, big game. Dak's trying to get a contract extension. Everyone's like, oh, Dak's got his locked up. He's going to the final year of his deal next year. There's a lot of I think and with McCarthy, this is a big, meaningful game for him as well. I like Dallas. The only way Green Bay, I think, wins this game is if they just dominate time of possession, right? If Aaron Jones goes off for 120 yards rushing plus, then that could get ugly because Dallas can't really run the football, and then they're just going to be playing catch up the whole time, which Dallas can do. But I think that's the window for Green Bay. If they can dominate rushing the ball, that's the window. But I'll take Dallas. I think the overhits. I think this is a fun game. I think it's high scoring. Dallas like 33, Packers 27. They keep it alive. But I think this is fun, high scoring. Micah, Parsons makes a play.
Yeah, I pick the Dallas Cowboys for multiple reasons, but I think defense is number one. They just have such a leg up on that side of the ball compared to the Green Bay Packers that I'm going to go with that. And it's the way CeeDee Lamb's been playing, but they've got other playmakers. Brandon Cooks has come up as of late. Jake Ferguson's there. Tony Pollard's just too much to contend with for the Green Bay defense. And Dak Prescott, he's been playing really, really well. The second half of this year, he's been really good. And so is Jordan Love. Got to give him credit there. But Dak is playing against Green Bay's defense. Jordan Love's playing against Dallas's defense. That's the difference here. And Dak has better playmakers overall to work with.
An underrated point too. Remember, Dallas started their starters last week and went out to win that game. And against, and so I think that is an underrated point too. Like Dallas isn't coming in here like, oh, we locked up the division, we're good. Also I know it's a small sample size, only 3 years, but a 7 has never beaten a 2. So you're predicting a 7-2 upset here. I'm not going to go there yet. I think we get year 4 of no 7s over 2s.
Yeah, no, I think this was the easiest game to predict of the entire wild card weekend. To be quite honest with you.
I'd say so.
The disparity between the two teams, but then again, any of these matchups, I could see the upset winning. Like it's obviously could happen. Yeah. It's playoffs. Like it's NFL any given Sunday, but. I'm going to take the Cowboys in this one as well. So the final game on NBC is going to be the Rams at the Lions. Another dome game, not weather affected here. Detroit hosting its first playoff game in decades. The last time they won a playoff game was in 92, I believe, right? The last playoff win. So, a lot riding on the line here for Detroit. Matthew Stafford making his return to Detroit as well. That's going to be a big storyline. Jared Goff with the revenge game.
Yeah, Goff revenge game.
Rams traded you away years ago, and here you are hosting a playoff game against them. This is a really fun one. I'm really looking forward to this. Outside of the Pittsburgh-Buffalo game, which, of course, I'm looking forward to and excited to watch, this might be the other one that I'm most excited for because of the storyline, but because it's we're going to see 2 really talented offenses going up against, defenses that at times maybe have overperformed their expectation. The Rams certainly have. And so I'm really much looking forward to that. And it's going to be Jared Goff versus Matt Stafford. Which one is able to rally their troops and make some bigger plays, because they both have good run games, but I think the run game gets stymied in this. I think they're actually going to have to win through the air in this one. So I'll give my initial thoughts, and it's that the Los Angeles Rams get the win. I am going to be rooting for the Detroit Lions to win. But I've tried, I've poured it through. I've wanted to will it to happen. And I think Jared Goff has more to play for than Matt Stafford. I think Detroit has more to play for than Los Angeles. But something is just telling me that the way that the Rams have been able to overcome so much opposition this year, like everyone thought, including me, they were going to be terrible. Puka Nacua has, beaten the odds to be, a great rookie receiver. Matt Stafford's beaten the odds in terms of like his health. And that defense of no names has played so well as of late that I just think I'm going to have to take a coin flip game to go in favor of the head coach I trust more, and that's Sean McVay. And so I'm going to ride with McVay in this one. I take them to win. I hope Detroit wins though, but
So
that's
there's
how I
been
see it.
no bigger supporter of the Rams than me, right? I am
Yeah.
been the Rams guy this year.
Maybe not a bigger supporter of the Lions than you
I am the
too,
biggest
even though
supporter of the
you're a
Rams.
Bears fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Rams won 10 games. They beat the Seahawks twice. They beat the Cardinals twice. They beat the Colts early in the year when they still they're dealing with Anthony Richardson and the injury. They also then had stacked up wins late in the season against the Commanders, against the Saints, against the Giants, and then last week getting win number 10 over a Niners team that was sitting everyone. That game doesn't really count, right? So as much as I've loved the Rams and told you they are better than you expect, the Lions are the better football team in this game. The Lions have the best offensive line in football. Penei Sewell is just named All-Pro. Frank Ragnow, the center, they are terrific. They are a phenomenal group. The Rams' offensive line is improving. It's nice. It's young. But I think Hutchinson is entering his prime. He is a game wrecker. He will be a difference maker in this game. Aaron Donald, yes, very good. But I think he's going to be neutralized by that extremely talented Lions offensive line. I trust that the Lions won't make the big mistake. They're going to run the you-know-what out of the football. They're going to control the clock. I think this is actually an easy win for the Lions if they don't get wrapped up in the emotion of the game. There's a lot of emotion in this game. You had one of the most popular bars in Detroit saying, you can't wear a Stafford Lions jersey at the bar, we'll kick you out. So there's a lot of emotion on the line for the Lions. This will be the hardest game for the Lions this whole playoff run. It will be the hardest game. The first cut is the deepest, right? This is going to be the hardest game. If they can get through this game, I love them against the Cowboys. If they can get through this game, I think they're absolutely alive against the Niners. And then you make the Super Bowl, who knows what happens. I think this will be the hardest game for them. It really will be. And I think that the Lions and that crowd and Dan Campbell, they played their starters last week. The Rams didn't. They're playing angry. They're playing frustrated. They should be the 2 seed. They shouldn't even be in this spot. I think the Lions are going to come out and they are going to dominate the time of possession. They are going to lean on those big uglies up front. I love David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs overs everything in this game. And I think it's the Goff revenge game. They are playing for a lot more. And they have a physical, better football team. So I am letting my heart speak with my gut. And as much as I've loved the Rams all year, the Rams can absolutely win this game because Stafford is elite. He's playing elite. McVay is, to me, a top 3 coach in the NFL. And they have weapons that you don't want to deal with. And no Sam Laporta. That hurts the Lions big time.
That is big, yeah.
I think the Lions scheme...
Well, it's not confirmed yet, but it's most likely.
Lions scheme, Ben Johnson. I just think this is one of those teams and one of those games that when we look back on it, we'll look and be like, all is right in the world for the Lions. They did not... this would be a devastating loss for them. I think they avoid it. They also feel like even though there's pressure, it doesn't feel like there's pressure in Detroit. I'm going Detroit fairly easily. I think it's going to be 30-24, but the Rams maybe score late. I think this is the Lions lean heavy on their dominant offensive line.
Just to slightly push back on the Rams point that you made about their schedule, the Lions haven't really beat many good teams either. They split with the Packers, they beat the Vikings, the Broncos, they beat the Raiders, the Chargers,
split with the Bears.
They beat the Chiefs week 1.
It's a different team.
And then they should have beat the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
So I'll give them that. But yeah, you can't choose your schedule either. I would agree that overall they as a team throughout the season, they're the better team. But I think scheme matters a lot in the playoffs.
Oh, and experience.
I just think I think the better quarterback right now is Matthew Stafford, and the better coach is Sean McVay. To me, that's enough to win them. But like I said, I'm going to root for the Lions. It's going to
be electric.
If I had a Lions jersey, I'd be wearing it.
It's going to be electric at Ford Field Sunday night.
Stoked for this game, no question. All right, Let's get to the final game of Wild Card Weekend. The Eagles at the Buccaneers Monday night. Philadelphia favored by just 3 points here. They are on the road, and it was just announced an hour before we went live here that A.J. Brown is officially ruled out for this game. So big loss there. Jalen Hurts coming off of an injury to that finger. So less than ideal circumstance here for the Eagles, who have stumbled their way the last month of the season into the postseason here. They're lucky that they were able to win so many games, because they are losers of 5 of their last 6 coming into this game, and lost to the Cardinals and the Giants in the final 2 weeks of the regular season. So obviously the team with momentum here is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so I'm just going to put it out there right now in terms of the standalone matchup, not about these teams, what they've done this year, the standalone matchup this upcoming Monday night. I think the Buccaneers are in a much better position to win this game. I am taking Tampa Bay to win this game over the Eagles.
I hate that, because I am too. I hate that.
I think we're going to have there's going to be trouble brewing in the city of brotherly love. I think Nick Sirianni is in a lot of trouble if they lose this game, and I think they will. And I honestly think the A.J. Brown news is massive.
It is.
Now all of a sudden, who is your big play threat now? You haven't been running the ball very well. You haven't been throwing the ball very well.
Crazy.
The Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield. If I know Baker's questionable, he's going to play. Like I'd be very surprised if he doesn't play. They've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and they're big play guys. Rashad White has been really good, and so I just think in a game where there's going to be a lot of emotion here from Baker in particular, like trying to get up and prove all the doubters wrong. They're beating up on a wounded goat right now in Philadelphia, and so I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. But who do I trust to make more plays? This Philly defense has been a terrible mark. But yeah, I'm going to give the edge to the Buccaneers here to make the necessary 1 or 2 plays that gets them the win. Maybe it comes down to a couple field goals. Who knows?
The strength of the Buccaneers all season has been Baker and Mike Evans and the deep balls and the passing game. And the weakness of Philadelphia is the back end, their secondary. It's terrible. Terrible. The pressure is on Philadelphia. And they have just completely fallen apart. I mean, completely fallen apart. I'm taking the Bucs too for a lot of the reasons you just said. I hate it. This is the one game I say I'm not betting anything but the over. I'm just going to root for points and just try to have some fun with it, because truly, to me, it's one of those things. I'll make the only argument I'll make for Philly about A.J. Brown being out that could be positive is that A.J. Brown is a little bit of a diva. Like, he's a little bit of the sidelines, yelling, screaming, antics. He's had some up and down this year with the media and with getting in Jalen Hurts' face. I think there could be a little bit of that, just like that, like relief that if all of a sudden they're down, 10-0 early, and
they can spread it out
if
more.
If AJ Brown had no targets, no catches, I have a feeling he'd be going irate on the sideline. That you don't have that. That's that little thing that is a possibility is going to be removed. Now, you're also losing a top 5 wide receiver talent in the NFL, so it's a yin and a yang. I'm going to go with Tampa, but again, I'm that's only because we have to pick. I'm betting the points on this one, taking the over, have some fun, and I think it could be maybe Bill Belichick in New England this time next week. In Philadelphia this time next week.
That would be absolutely wild to see the downfall of Philly. If they do lose this game, maybe even if they don't lose this game, they might be the candidate and the clear winner of just biggest collapse. Obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a part of that group, but I mean, the way Philly is absolutely destroyed the talent that they've had, it's absolute disaster. All right, well, those are our wild card predictions. So the only ones we disagree on are I have the Rams over the Lions, you have the Lions over the Rams, and you have the Bills over the Steelers. I have the Steelers over the Bills.
But everything else were the same. I hate that I'm taking every home team, but not every home team is a favorite. So that's how I'm justifying it.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, no, that's certainly a good point. It's more about the spreads, I think, than anything else. But yeah, will be an interesting grouping of games. I'm really much looking forward to it. Obviously, we have to talk about these head coaches because we lost some legends. So let's touch on that real quick. Nick Saban out in Alabama. Um, there's not much more to say about the guy that has won, what was it, 7 national championships in Alabama? I can't even remember what the actual
I think he won
number is
6
for
at
him.
Bama, but he won 7 total, one with LSU.
7 total, okay, with LSU. Yeah,
And
so 7 total national championships, and Bill Belichick was 6 Super Bowl championships.
The stat that kills me about Saban is he was 11-1 lifetime in SEC title games. I mean, that is insane. What to me, the thing about Nick Saban, which should always be remembered about him and will always be, is that he was a lock to win the national title unless one other program had the greatest year in college football history, aka Cam Newton Auburn year, aka Joe Burrow LSU year, and that 1 year with that the loaded Clemson team and Trevor Lawrence. Like, those are the 3 times that you're like, oh, he didn't win. When it was like, these are generational greatest college football teams of all time. You know what I mean? And now this Michigan team, which again, this Alabama team, I think is smart of Nick to go out on top in this way. The fact that he willed that Alabama team to the point that they got and came within a play of beating the eventual 15-0 national champion Michigan Wolverines. Nick had said for years he didn't want to be Joe Pa and he didn't want to be Bobby Bowden. And I give him a lot of credit for that. He's made a ton of money, and I think he's getting out at the exact right time. The college landscape is harder than it's ever been. It is a disaster with the recruiting, the transfer portals, the NILs. And so good luck to Kalen DeBoer from Washington taking over Alabama. I hope they give him an actual window to really compete because I think he's a really good coach.
He's going to need a few years to get his full slate of recruits in.
And I think that at this point in time, you're going to say to yourself that what's great about college football right now is it feels like, big bad Georgia, still Georgia. And if Harbaugh stays at Michigan, they're still going to be the dominant force, those two. But it feels otherwise. Every other team's got to feel way better this morning. Florida State, Texas, Clemson. Ole Miss. All these other big programs have got to feel really good when Nick Saban retired. He's the greatest college football coach of all time. And if anyone ever puts themselves in the category of him or passes him, then in order to do that, they will have earned the title of the greatest college football coach of all time because he has set the bar so high.
Yeah, they would leave it as almost a no doubt.
Because his bar is so high.
That's impressive. The same goes for Bill Belichick. We'll probably never see as decorated of a head coach in the NFL ever again, and I'm not sure we have even before.
Yeah.
And so Bill Belichick being out in New England, obviously it appears this was not his decision. They said it was a mutual parting of ways. Now he got fired.
Yeah.
And Bill obviously, maybe his pride was his downfall at the end of the day. For so many years, not willing to pivot on the offensive side of the ball and find a true offensive coordinator in there, wanting his own guys, wanting to
personnel control.
Personnel control, not wanting to give that up. That's a big problem. And so that obviously was his downfall. It'll be interesting to see where he goes now. And I think we'll be able to do much more of a Bill Belichick episode when he retires, when it's over officially. Because
when we know where he's going.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably going to play or coach another couple years. I really think he wants to chase that Don Shula record.
Yes.
And really, he's 15 wins away. Even if he doesn't go to a team that's winning the Super Bowl, he's just got to win 8 games the next 2 years, and he'll have that record. And so, obviously, it's not what he wants.
Yeah.
But if, Atlanta's being rumored, I think that'd be a weird spot for him to go overall for like what he would want. But Atlanta would be a good spot for him to win 8 games the next 2 years. He could certainly do that. But yeah, I just think it's fascinating. Gerard Mayo takes his place in New England, a defensive head coach, a homegrown New England guy. We'll see if he's able to bring in a staff that's very talented to help offset the defensive side of the ball. But
he's their DeMeco Ryans. He's their DeMeco Ryans, the legend who played. You bring him back. He understands what the winning culture is like when you were there. And to me now, as far as New England, then I'll talk about Bill. They to me have the most pressure to be aggressive to go get Caleb Williams, because if you're going with a defensive coach, then you need a star quarterback. And it's kind of look what happened to the Texans. They went with a defensive coach who can manage the culture, be the CEO, set the tone. Well, then you need a star quarterback then who can just kind of give the offense to. And it's the same thing that Belichick did with Brady. Once Brady became a star, it was, okay, you handle this, I'll handle this. So I think it's really important for them to be aggressive in trying to get Caleb Williams. I don't think they can just settle for Drake May. I don't think they can just settle for hopefully Jane Daniels turns into a star. I think they are the team now that has the most pressure to be aggressive to go get Caleb Williams. And if you're Caleb, it's a great spot to be. I think Mayo's going to be a really good coach. It's a sound organization. I think players will want to play in New England. It's kind of this revamp of the culture. And I think you're not following Tom anymore. It's fallen from grace. And now you're part of the build back up. I think it'd be a good place to be. And then as far as Bill goes, absolutely, he needs to find his Tampa. He needs to do what Tom did. He needs to find his Tampa, go to a place where he can win 8 or 9 games a year, give himself a chance in the playoffs. I think Atlanta's really viable. I think if the Eagles fire Sirianni, that's a great opening. And I think Seattle. I think Seattle is an interesting place to keep an eye on. I think Washington's too much of a rebuild. They don't have a quarterback, and I don't think Bill wants a rookie quarterback. He doesn't want to risk that. But Seattle's interesting. You could give me Geno, and I could draft a guy, right? Or if you're Seattle, you could go get me Kirk Cousins. If you're Atlanta, go get me Kirk Cousins. And let's try to win 9 games a year for the next 3 years and give me a couple playoff runs and show you I can do it without Brady too. That's his goal right now. And it'll be really fascinating to talk more about Bill and his legacy when he retires, obviously, but also when we know where he's going next.
Oh, we just got breaking news that the Steelers-Bills game has been moved to 4:30 on Monday. So now we've got 2 Monday games. So they are trying to get out of this weather as much as possible. We'll see what that does for.
To me, the Bills game, that's not as dangerous as the Saturday night game. That game is dangerous. The Chiefs, play in the snow and the wind, that's fine, but it's dangerous what they're going to make the Dolphins and the Chiefs play. I can't believe they're moving that game and not that game. All right.
I think it may just depend on the amount of snow that's going to accumulate tonight.
Yeah.
And it's going to be difficult for people to get to the stadium. And they're doing, it's kind of like a state of emergency in New York. So it's probably just hard to justify being able to.
I will say this hurts your Steelers. I think that hurts your Steelers pick a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree too, a little bit for sure.
They're still alive. The weather's not going to be great, but they're still alive. But I think that hurts your Steelers pick.
I wonder what that does if for the Bills with ruling out Gabe Davis and Rasul Douglas. If an extra day of rest might change. I don't know if it will. And I don't know the rules. If you've already ruled them out, I'm sure you could rule them back in, right?
If I was the NFL, I would move. I would also slot in. I would move the Chiefs and Dolphins to Sunday in that spot at noon.
In that 1 o'clock spot.
Get the sunshine. You know what I mean? And give yourself a chance. Tomorrow at noon here in our area, it's going to be bad still. It's going to be bad. But at least you have the sunshine. You could justify some other things, but we'll see what they do. I think it's too late now. The game's it's today. They can't move it, but it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting situation. All right, so we covered those head coaches. Just real quick on Pete Carroll, 14 years in Seattle. Obviously took them to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. Big part of building those rosters, but obviously the lack of success, the lack of defensive success in particular, the last several years, just wasn't cutting it. It seemed to be time in Seattle to move on. They've got a great GM who now gets to actually play that role to its fullest. And so he gets to choose, be a part of that search for the next head coach. They were announcing that Pete Carroll, might be an advisory role. Kind of interesting. I know that he obviously wants to coach, and he mentioned in his press conference that he fought to stay with Seattle as the head coach. So I don't know how that dynamic plays out and if he'll go elsewhere, where that would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just your thoughts overall on Pete Carroll being out in Seattle.
I could see Pete taking an opportunity if Washington can't get, Belichick, where it's like, hey, can you come in here and know this is only and just announce it's a 2-year deal, but he's going to help us get our organization organized and right and together. and find the quarterback and then hand it off to, the next person. But otherwise I think he should retire and just stay retired, because his legacy, I think, he is a Hall of Famer in my opinion. I mean, he won 2 national titles into USC, won a Super Bowl, went to another one in Seattle. He is, to me, one of the top 15 just football coaches of all time. I mean, if you really look at the wins, college, pro,
Sure.
if you're just football coaches, I think he really deserves to be in that range. And I think right off into the sunset, I think it's a good thing for him to do. Take an advisory role with Seattle. You're going to live there the rest of your time anyways, and just kind of right off into the sunset is just an ambassador for the team. Seattle job is really interesting. The hard part about Seattle is a lot like the Chargers to me. They have holes in the roster, and you're basically admitting that when you come into the division, you're going to be third. So you have to overcome third, right? You're looking up at Sean Payton. You're looking up at Andy Reid. You're looking up at McVay. You're looking up at Shanahan. So I think Seattle would be a really great destination if you're Ben Johnson. You have those 3 wide receivers. You can maybe then say, let's get aggressive. Let's go get Caleb Williams. Let's go get Drake May. Let's go get me my guy. I can still start Geno for a year and then groom my guy, whatever it might be. So you also could just say, hey, let's hope a Jaden Daniels falls to us. Really interesting. I think Seattle could have a really quick turnaround here in a couple of years if they get the head coach right and they find the right quarterback of the future.
Absolutely. No, I'm in agreement. Ben Johnson, very enticing job there. No question about it. Well, that was a lot. We had a lot for this Friday episode. Usually these are much shorter, but hey, we had a full week wildcard preview and plenty of breaking news to get to. So that's your full slate as we approach this wildcard weekend. But yeah, right at the end of the show, stay tuned for that Bills-Steelers game, 4:30 p.m. now on Monday. So Monday afternoon, going to have 2 games on Monday, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. So we'll see how this thing plays out. But that is our preview of Wildcard Weekend. We will be back next week with plenty to recap from the craziness of this playoff slate and get ready for the divisional round.